Welcome to the Planning for Life podcast with certified financial planner professional Russell Jacobs and financial life advisor Carl Coolidge. Carl and Russell will share creative strategies and ideas for overcoming challenges in your personal and financial life. Inevitably, life happens, and we will empower you to reach your destination. Thanks for joining us. Now, on to the show.
Hello and welcome to another Planning for Life podcast. Today, Carl and I are going to dive deeply into having a positive money mindset, and not just having a positive money mindset, but also understanding your money mindset. If you understand how you interact with money or the feelings of money or the realities of money, it really changes how you work with a planner, and it also will really impact not only your budgeting, but your long-term planning with money. So Carl, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Matt. Happy to be here.
Well, money mindset's a big thing, right? When you have people come in, one of the things that you and your partner do is you guys will kind of take your client's pulse, and Russell and you will try to figure out what their money mindset is. Is that true?
Yes, I would say that that's a fair assessment. I mean, we're trying to really determine, is their focus on savings? Is it on retirement? Is it on college funding? Is it on being able to buy a bigger boat? Is it on getting the bigger house, etc.? So we're just trying to really understand what's important to them.
I'm going to go through some categories, if you don't mind, of some money mindsets. And if you could give me maybe an example or a definition, or even better, a way to talk about this with clients, because I know you have these conversations, that would be really, really helpful to our listeners. So the first one is, when people come in and sit down with you and they've made mistakes with their money in the past, how do you handle that as an advisor?
Well, it can be a little bit difficult because you want to be sensitive to understand that when they made those mistakes, they may not have been in a good situation, or they may have been getting poor advice, or we were all young at one point and didn't make the best financial decisions. So it could be a combination of those things. But I want to really try to understand why they made those decisions they made when they made them. If they did make a poor decision when they were in their 30s, why did they make it? And sometimes the answer is we were stupid, we didn't know better. Sometimes the answer is we thought X would lead to Y, which would lead to Z, etc. So that helps you get in the mindset to understand why they were making those decisions.
The next category might seem strange to some people, but I'm going to give you an example. I have a really good friend of mine who never went to college. He was actually a garbage man before he got into a specific industry, and now he is wildly successful. A multimillionaire, runs a multi-million-dollar company. And Carl, he has real guilt about that money. What do you do about that, or have you experienced that in the past?
I would say we don't have a lot of people who've had guilt issues. I think it depends on what they ultimately do with that money. So the old saying is, right, money comes from either you inherit it, you make it, one of those typically. So I think those that have inherited it, you'll see some that want to give it away or want to maintain it. We don't work with a lot of those clients. Most of ours have made money over the years. And as they've gotten more successful or grown, they typically will be a little more charitable with that money, because I think, to tie it to your friend's example, he probably feels guilt because he came from nowhere and he's been able to do so well, but he knows what those people that quote unquote weren't doing well, he knows what it's like. So he has guilt about now being very successful.
Yeah.
So we have the conversation of, if you can do the things you need to do to be successful, then that opens up the avenues where you can be more charitable, even with your time, your money, your family. But I think that's a way to sort of counteract it.
I'm glad that's going to be one of the other money mindset things we're going to talk about is your charitable inclination. And that's how he has overcome some of his guilt, is he's wildly philanthropic. He
Right.
is always giving more money away than you could really honestly ever imagine, just because he has what he needs, which really brings us to being gracious surrounding money. Do you find that a lot of your clients who have been successful to high levels of success have true gratitude about what they've earned and how they've earned it?
I think it's a mix. I think some certainly do. Some feel that they worked extremely hard to get there, so they are entitled to, reap the rewards, if you will. I think it's really a mix of those two, but I will see most of our successful clients tend to have a lean to some sort of charitable endeavor. And a lot of times, not that our kids are charity, even though they can be sometimes, they lean to things that will benefit their children and sort of set them up in the future. And then also causes that are close to them. I think they begin to start to think about putting some of their either assets or time into those charities. But also, I think with successful people, you get that thin line of fear of success and fear of failure. And what I mean by that is you've done so well, that's great, but you always have in the back of your mind, there's one little thing that could take it all away or that could change it. So that's that fear of failure. But then the fear of success is, well, you've done so well, and how am I going to continue to get better each year?
Hmm.
That's getting a little deep into the mindset of it. But I think it just depends on where they are on that spectrum, and some will admit it and some won't.
Yeah. What about keeping up with the Joneses? Now, you live in a highly touristy area just because of St. Simon's and how beautiful it is there. And there are a lot of
Right.
people who truly try to keep up with the Joneses. How do you rein that in, or do you feel the need to have that conversation with some of your clients?
I've really worked over the years to try to find the best way to frame that. And I think with our planning, that's really where we've been able to zero in on it. So, how I look at it is to say, okay, when I'm meeting with a client, if you're doing the whatever, three, four, five things that you need to be doing, meaning you're saving for retirement, you're saving for your college, for your children, you've got enough insurance, you've got enough disability insurance, your long term care needs are taken care of, you've got your all your liabilities in a good place. Then with those other dollars that you have left after that, and again, you have to make certain assumptions in your plan and things along those lines. But once those are completed, then you can do what you want with the other money. So if you are meeting all of those core items that you need to, whether it be three, four, five, six things, and then you say, well, I really want a boat, or I really want the second house, or I want to go on vacation that's more lavish than typical, then my response over the years as I've kind of put my head around and tried to figure out is saying, okay, do those things because as long as you're doing the core things that you need to do, I think you have been successful. You have worked hard. So live in today, but also remember tomorrow will likely be here for most of us.
Having a planning process that actually focuses on happiness instead of numbers seems like a newer trend. How do you work with that?
Again, I think it's just finding that balance. You want to live in the now because, again, as the old saying goes, tomorrow's never given. You never know what will happen the next day. We're living in an environment now where everyone's changing their mindset with what's going on with the world. So I think you have to find the balance. But as I said earlier, you have to live today and enjoy that happiness, the things you want to do, being able to do things with your family, being able to, if you want to get certain items, whatever they are that you feel make you happy or your family happy, then that's important. But the likelihood is, and again, if you look at percentages, you're going to live a much longer life. So you have to plan for those items because you can't live for today 100%, or you're going to find yourself in a really, really tough spot when you get to retirement. And there's a lot of things you can borrow money for, but you can't borrow money for retirement.
Yeah. Wants versus needs. Now, I think you just explained that really well, so we can touch on that quickly and move on, especially with living for the moment, younger, very successful people. How do you help people take that longer view?
When it comes to wants versus needs,
Yeah.
again, I think it's what I touched on earlier. It's really saying what are the core items that you need to accomplish or that you need to do in order to set yourself up and your family in a successful way, whether that be from savings, retirement, college savings, making sure you have the proper amount of insurance coverages on your life, your disability, long-term care, even getting into home, property, etc., making sure all of that's in good order. And then I think you can branch into the wants of getting the second home or the boat or the expensive car or lavish vacations, etc. So to me, that's the want versus need conversation. And if you're getting the check boxes for your needs, then the wants are available to you.
Yeah. I've heard from other advisors, in fact, I might have even heard this from you, Carl, that when people do enter into retirement and you've gone through the planning process and they're still being wildly frugal and they're not living the life in retirement that they said that they wanted to because they have fears surrounding scarcity or things along those lines. How do you convince, or how does the conversation happen when you're sitting with a couple and you know that they wanted to go to Italy and they're not going to Italy because they're afraid that they don't have the money, even though it's very, very clear that they're going to have more than enough money? How does that conversation go?
That's a great question, Matt. I've had that conversation actually a fair amount with clients, and I think it's really a mindset and how you're raised and brought up more so than anything. Is if you have a frugal personality, whether you made a little bit of money or you become very successful, you don't change a whole lot. You still keep those core values that you were taught or you learned or however they came about. And so to have that conversation, it's very difficult to get clients who are in that frugal mentality to say, yes, you can take that trip to Italy and it's not really going to make a difference whatsoever. But I try my best to reassure them, to look at the numbers, to get them to understand that with what we have going on today, it still supports what you're doing. And even now, or this is when things get more challenging, when the markets are very volatile. And I think if you can show them when we're in markets like this, they're still in a good position, then they feel a little more confident to do those types of things, especially when the market hopefully returns to a much better level. So it's really finding that balance because you want to respect where they came from and that they're frugal. And that's partly why they built the assets they have and why they're able to not worry about things, but they always have that little bit of doubt in their head. And a lot of times it's because they can't control it in their mind. Before, and a lot of these are business owners, they could control it in their mind that they could build up the business. If it got soft, they could work a little harder, they could expand. They knew it very well. With the markets, nobody really knows it. I think we've seen over the years. And so it's a little bit of a control factor because most people that are very successful do like that level of control also.
Now, my final question for you today is probably the most philosophical question that I've asked you so far. So strap yourself in because we'll see where this goes.
Great. Great.
As people, in my experience, make more money, one of the things that they'll say is, I'll be happy when I have blank amount of money. And then they get to that blank amount of money and then they realize, I'm still really not happy. You work with some really successful people. I mean, people on the grand scheme of things who have done everything right. They have, worked their tail off. They've gotten to the right careers. They put their time in. What happens with that? I'll be able to retire when I have X amount of money. What do you do in those conversations?
Very difficult question to answer. I would say it just depends on the person. I've seen some that have become very successful that are now beginning other things that they really enjoy, that they have a passion about, that now that they are in a successful financial situation, they can take that risk. And if it completely fails or doesn't go as they expect, they're still able to function and stay, financially in a good place. So I think that's one of the things. It's just a tough question to answer of what motivates these people because I have seen I've seen where they get to a certain number, and it makes me think of what in Wall Street when what's enough is never enough kind of thing. I know I'm bouncing around, Matt, but you caught me off guard with this. I'm
That's
trying to
okay.
think of
It's a
the
tough
best way to answer
question.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah. when they see that number, I think it gives them comfort, but usually people who target that number, there's something else really driving them. And so we'll see a lot of our clients that maybe hit the number that are very successful. And if they don't have that other avenue they really enjoy, then they want to keep working. They want to keep providing what they've built up, their idea capital, if you will, to the rest of the world. I mean, that sounds big, but I think that's what they enjoy doing, is imparting that wisdom to other younger entrepreneurs. Some people enjoy that. Some people, I think, really enjoy just being able to play golf and relaxing and not being too concerned with it, or enjoying travel. So you get a mix of all of those items, but I don't see a lot of people who say, I hit my number, whatever that is, and I'm shutting it down and just going to relax at home. I think there's always something next, extra, whatever the term you want to use, that they want to do.
Was there anything along these lines of money behaviors that I should have asked you that I didn't?
I would just say, and I think we covered a lot of it because you did excellent questions, Matt. I think it's just it goes back to having that plan. I know we talk about it all the time on this podcast, but Russell and I really focus on our clients, those individuals we can speak with, of having your plan, because if you have your plan, it gives you reasons for doing things. And if you have this plan in place, then it allows you to go do all these other things you want to do with confidence, or not, because you actually know where you stand. And so, again, I hate harping on it, but as you continue to go and focus on your plan, and the longer you focus on it, the more clear path you can see to getting where you want to go. Because remember, everyone's plan is different. It doesn't mean, when I say focus on your plan, it doesn't mean you're trying to get rich. It just means you're trying to accomplish your goals, whatever those may be. So a lot of people think planning begins with, well, you're just trying to get as much money as you can. No, a lot of people do want to do that, but happiness means different things to different people, and it's not always money driven or monetarily driven. What I would say is come back to your plan, make sure you're doing what you need to do from a planning standpoint. Then you can do these other things with confidence.
You know, this is the Planning for Life podcast, so we're not
good point.
We're not being quiet about the fact that you know the plan is the key. So, Carl, thank you so much for today. I know some of those were difficult questions, but I think you answered them really, really well, and I think our audience is going to get some good information from it. So, thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Matt.
If you know somebody who doesn't have a plan, and sometimes, especially what Carl is saying, it's going to be pretty obvious that they don't have a plan, make sure that you share this podcast with them, because, well, they're your friends, they're your family, they're people who you care about. You probably should help them with something that's going to impact their entire life, not just their financial life. All right, so for everybody at Jacobs, Coolidge and Company, this is Matt Halloran, and we'll see you on the other side of the mic very soon.
The content is developed from sources believed to be providing accurate information. The information in this material is not intended as tax or legal advice. Please consult legal or tax professionals for specific information regarding your individual situation. The opinions expressed and material provided are for general information and should not be considered a solicitation for the purchase or sale of any security. Russell C. Jacobs III, Carl B. Coolidge, James Jacobs, and William Schwartz are registered representatives of and offer securities, investment advisory, and financial planning services through MML Investor Services, LLC, member SIPC, Supervisory Office, Jacksonville, Florida. Jacobs, Coolidge and Company, LLC is not a subsidiary or affiliate of MML Investor Services, LLC, or its affiliated companies.